Hello everyone, I'm Arnav Kumar Tripathi. I'm a PhD scholar at the Department of Design, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. The co-writer with me on this paper is Professor Subir De. He is an assistant professor at the Department of Design, IIT Delhi in India. And the paper that we are going to present today is titled Effects of Odia Handwriting Education on Children's Letterform Comprehension. So through this paper, we are trying to look at various teaching methods that are being used right now to teach the handwriting process of Odia script and how it is impacting the overall understanding of letter forms for children. So in order to get into this topic, first we needed to understand where handwriting stands among language communication mediums. So under textual medium of language communication, we have letters and numerals, and their distinct graphical or visual form is referred to as letter form. So these letter forms are expressed in either handwritten text like handwriting, calligraphy, lettering practice, etc., or as typefaces or fonts that are used on digital interfaces or printed materials. The area of typography deals with the design and arrangement of typefaces and fonts to make the written material more legible and readable, whereas studies on calligraphy explore the methods of creating strokes or sequences of strokes that make up the letter form. Now, when we talk about handwriting, it requires an optimum balance of both these aspects, legibility and readability from typography, and stroke making processes and sequences from calligraphy. Hence, this paper considers essential concepts from both these domains while analyzing handwriting practice. So we looked into how a child actually learns to write, and several studies have worked on this area, and they predominantly tell us that the learning begins with the recognition of the visual or graphical characteristics of the letter form. The children understand their names and the sounds that those symbols actually represent, and then they try to replicate these strokes or letter forms repeatedly in order to train their cognitive and visual motor memory. So such repeated replication leads to a consistency, accuracy, and a certain level of automaticity in writing, which is called as handwriting acquisition. Hence, for the acquisition, not only repeated practice of the drawing of strokes is required, but an initial understanding of the shape of the letter form plays a major part. So, several studies have found that these repeated replication of each and every stroke of a letter form meticulously takes an exhaustive visual motor movement, and that helps in improving a child's visual understanding of the letter form more than just visual means of teaching or through keyboarding. So this understanding also helps in enhancing a child's compositional writing skills as well as spelling and word orthographic skills. Therefore, it is imperative to study children's learning of writing with various scripts. However, when we look at Indic scripts, or basically the scripts which mostly originated from India, there are more than 25 type of distinct scripts available in India, but the research on the learning of letter forms and handwriting is very minimal in the case of Indic scripts. The most prominent collection of literature in this regard is available on the Devanagari script by Shir Sagar. Devanagari script is the script that is used for Hindi language. So, as Sasson has said, scripts around the world are anatomically or morphologically very distinct, and the rules that govern their writing process or usage are also very unique. Hence, there is a requirement of a separate and detailed handwriting research for all the script systems. So, in this context, we did a background study of Odia script. The Odia is primarily employed for Odia language, which is used in the eastern state of Odisha in India. It is an alpha syllabic writing system with 11 vowels, 38 consonants, and 10 numerals. Around 35 million users use the Odia language as their mother tongue as per the 2011 census, which might have increased even more by now. So, in the ancient times, Odia script was written on palm leaves, and palm leaves are usually weaker or thinner near the area of the veins of the leaves. So, any kind of horizontal straight line stroke made near the vein of the leaf used to tear up. So that's why those horizontal strokes were later converted into circular strokes. And now we have these kind of Odia letter forms with a lot of circular features. Apart from the basic characters or basic letters, ODI script also has some joint characters. So, for example, when a consonant and a vowel are merged together, a modifier or a matra takes the place of the vowel and is added before, after, on the top, or on the below of the consonant. However, when a consonant and a consonant joined together, the secondary consonant is usually written as a subscript under the primary consonant, and the merged character is referred to as a yuktakshar or a conjunct consonant. Such merging of letter forms increases the overall number of characters that the children need to learn to write. To minimize the challenge of understanding the graphical characteristics of ODI letter forms, Mohanty had developed a grid model. However, this grid was primarily developed for ODI typeface design process and not for the writing process. Hence, it also did not efficiently address the formation of yuktakshars or matras. From a calligraphic point of view, Mins had developed an Odia calligraphy manual to teach how to write Odia letter forms with a calligraphic approach. The direction of strokes, their sequences, and the grid models all were discussed in this. But again, this could also not be used for the regular handwriting progress because it was mostly from a calligraphic point of view. Hence, there was a need to explore how the process of writing Odia script was taught to children. In this context, our study employed a descriptive research approach and it was done in two parts. In the first part, various practices and tools for teaching Odia letter form writing were identified, and through unstructured interviews with teachers and parents, the methods employed for each of the practices were documented. This was followed by a handwriting activity with a group of elementary school children to investigate their learning and understanding of the Odia letter form. So while looking at the teaching methods, it was revealed that Odia script lacks a systematic and standardized curriculum to teach Odia letter form writing to children. In some cases, children were taught with handheld guidance during writing, whereas in other cases, the letter forms are just shown to them through either a poster or on a blackboard or a whiteboard, and they're just asked to replicate them. Even the handwriting practice materials, the books which they use to practice handwriting, are not standardized. Some provide two-line grades, some three-line grades, some four-line grades. So it's pretty unsystematic. And also, the primitive or the basic strokes that the children practice before writing uh, complete letter forms, so they are also derived from Latin, and Odia script doesn't necessarily have those features. Hence, the handwriting education is pretty unsystematically being carried out. Then, in order to see how this unsystematic education is actually affecting the learning of children, we carried out a handwriting activity with them. Now, ODI script does not have a specific evaluation system to check the handwriting or analyze the handwriting. Hence, we looked at the definition of a proficient writing practice. And in some studies, it is defined as a fluent execution of the specific sequence of strokes in a letter form with reasonable speed and adequate legibility. Since we are dealing with elementary level children who generally practice writing only singular letters or words and are not very experienced in writing complete sentences or paragraphs, and their cognitive and visual motor skills also remain at a developing stage, it was difficult to evaluate and compare their speed of writing and legibility of the written material. Hence, alternatively, a recognizable written output of the letter forms was taken as a sufficient evaluation parameter along with the execution of the sequence of strokes, and the writing speed was not taken into consideration. For the assessment of legibility or recognizability, the teacher's subjective judgment was taken into consideration, and for the analysis of stroke sequences, handwriting analysis method proposed by Shirsagar and Puvaya was used. As per this method, a character having the maximum variety of strokes used in a particular script is chosen as the key character. Then various stroke making sequences while writing the key character by different persons are recorded and categorized for further analysis. In a random error sample was collected from 163 elementary school students from two ODI medium schools. Written consent for conducting the activity and video recording was taken from the school headmasters as well as the parents of the children. So, considering the children's lack of experience in writing sentences or paragraphs, it was decided to provide them with only two Odia words to be copied 5 times on plain or unruled paper, which is similar to their usual handwriting learning practice. Odia letter forms primarily contain a mix of vertical or diagonal strokes and a compound clockwise and anti-clockwise circular strokes. As the letter form sh, which is currently being visible on the presentation, comprises a combination of all those strokes, it was chosen as the key letter of observation. The first Odia word had a letter form sh in its basic form, and the second Odia word had the letter form sh in the yuktakshara or the conjunct consonant form. So this whole writing activity was video recorded, and the video clips were then further analyzed. From these clips, each possible visual representation of the key letter was then sketched according to the children's method of writing. Because of technical errors in video making and some errors by students, some clips were not useful for the purpose of analysis, but we still got 1621 clips, out of which 813 were for the basic letter form and 808 were for the Yuktakshara. All those representations were categorized into various types according to the reference methodology, which gave us around 12 type of writing methods to write the letter form sh. The samples were then analyzed to understand their frequency and variation. These stroke order types clearly indicated the inconsistent stroke sequence followed by children to write the letter form. There was also a significant difference in the direction of the strokes, clockwise or counterclockwise. Such variations can be attributed to the lack of teaching a standard stroke making process to the students. They were following either the way their teachers or parents write the letter forms or in a random self assumed stroke order or stroke direction. It was also inconclusive to select a standard stroke making process on the basis of frequency alone because some smaller frequency variations were also adjudged recognizable by the teachers and some higher frequency variations were also adjudged non-recognizable by the teachers. So it was indecisive to prefer one over other. If you look at type C, which is basically C0 plus C1, it had a decent overall frequency of 9.8%. Although most of its outcomes were also rated recognizable, there was a general opinion among teachers that the gap between the lower circular stroke and the vertical bar gave a sense of an incomplete shape since the letter form in the school prescribed book had these two strokes connected. So this led to the idea of letter shape perception being an important factor to be inculcated into children while teaching them handwriting. A lesser number of strokes or pen lifts also could not be considered as a criteria to decide an ideal stroke making practice because shapes that are more similar to the prescribed ones in school books were coming out of stroke order types which required 3 or 4 strokes and as many pen lifts. In a few cases, the stroke orders resulted in a partial or full distortion of the overall letter form, and it was to the extent that most of them were hardly recognizable. Around 154 samples were written with pointed edges instead of rounded curves, which is the primary characteristic of Odia letter forms. And it was observed that children could not actually realize such a deformity and continued to write in a similar manner. So this suggests a lack of comprehension of the shapes and features of Odia letter forms among the children. A common observation among many of the students was their confusion regarding stopping or continuing with a stroke during writing. Some strokes were joined together to be written as a single stroke, whereas some single strokes were divided and written as multiple strokes. This implied that students could not clearly identify and distinguish separate parts of the letter form. With respect to writing yuktaksharas or conjunct consonants, around 80% students wrote the yuktakshara with the regular shape of the primary consonant. However, this way of writing the yuktakshara increases the overall height of the character because it goes below the baseline of the character, and this can be increased with the addition of matras into it. Hence, it could potentially present the risk of overlapping with characters written above or below it. Although The other two ways of writing yuktakshars, which are the condensed and the partial form of writing, was followed by a smaller number of students. Those are the forms that are mostly visible in school prescribed books or textbooks. And these forms do not actually extend the height of the overall character. And that's why they actually eliminate the risk of overlapping with the characters above or below it. So such variations in writing these yuktakshars reflect that the method of writing Odia yuktakshars is very inconsistent. Now, a few observations were also made regarding pen holding angle, left or right handedness, pen pressure on the paper, or eye distance during the writing. But however, in order to keep the investigation concise, the observation were restricted to only typographic and calligraphic properties. So, in conclusion, the study was initiated with the goal of an exploration into Odia handwriting education methods and its effects on children's overall understanding of the visual forms of the letters. It was revealed that Odia script lacks a systematic and standardized curriculum to teach Odia letter form writing to children, and such a disorganized handwriting education has led to multiple methods of writing by children and thereby the formation of erratic shapes of the Odia letter forms. So this suggests children's inadequacy of Odia letter form comprehension and also writing acquisition. Moreover, specialized teaching of the shape and formation of complex characters in Odia script like Matra and Yuktakshara has remained largely neglected. In addition to that, the absence of a distinct assessment method for Hodia handwriting process has hindered not only the evaluation of children's handwriting learning process but also the formalization of a standardized method for handwriting education. Therefore, this paper calls for looking at handwriting education from the perspective of an early level design education for elementary level students. Because a design thinking based handwriting education has the potential to let children view letter forms as not just abstract visual representations of specific sounds, but as elements of design and recognize their shapes and patterns more efficiently. Such a method of teaching would also be in accordance with the early childhood care and education vision of India's NEP National Education Policy 2020, whose one of the goals is to develop communication and comprehension of early language and literacy. However, for such a curriculum to develop, first an in-depth study of anatomical features and efficient grid models of Odia letter forms is required. A detailed understanding of the morphological formation of Odia letter forms could help in creating a standardized knowledge of their various features and parts, as well as their writing processes. Now, with regards to the limitations of the study is limited to the recognizability and stroke order analysis of a single Odia letter form. A more extended study considering various student level ergonomic as well as environmental factors is required for handwriting analysis, and investigations are also required in the case of writing on a digital screen with a graphic pen versus writing on a physical medium with a pencil or a pen to check how handwriting education works out in both the environments, especially in a post-COVID scenario. So such studies can be useful for researchers and educators to address the complexities of Odia letterform writing with a systematic approach. So these were my references for the presentation, and that's all from my side from today. And these are the contact details at the below. If you have any queries, you can shoot your mails here. Thank you.